Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 61 of the Pet Behaviour Chat. And today I'm super excited about this episode. I have the lovely Kay Attwood with me here today. And we are going to be talking all about her new book, which is Canine Cognitive Skills. And the reason I'm so excited about this is because I've just recently done a couple of episodes, episode 55 and 57, about canine cognitive dysfunction and feline cognitive dysfunction. And I can't wait to chat about, some of the games and the skills that you have in your book, because I think it's going to be so valuable to the listeners in terms of preventing some of these diseases that pets can get as they get older. So welcome, Kay. Before we get started, I'd love you to just briefly introduce yourself to everybody listening and just let us know a little bit about your dog training background before we move on to the book.
Okay, well, firstly, thank you for having me. And I'm so happy that I am here because I have actually listened to your previous chats that you've done, your podcast about cognition and how it can go into decline as dogs and cats get older. So this goes hand in hand, as you say, perfectly.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I run my own dog training business and I do dog training and behavior called Canine Services. And I'm based in the UK in Surrey, near Camberley. And I've been dog training since 2005 as a full-time job. And I kind of fell into it because, unfortunately, I had a bit of a health scare in that I had a heart attack. I had been working in the corporate world. So I thought, I'm going to be at home for a while because I started to work from home as I was trying to recover. And I thought, I can have a dog because I hadn't had a dog because I was working full time since I was a child. So I thought, I can have a dog again. So I got Gibson, who was a little 8-week-old rescue, Jack Russell Cross, took him to dog training school, and we absolutely excelled. We flew through all the levels from puppy to advanced. And the instructors were saying to me, God, you're really good at this. You know, he's the best in the class. And I heard that at every level. And I thought, I really love doing this. It's great. And I found that I was watching other people with their dogs in the class. And in my mind, I was thinking, do you know, if you just moved your hand a little bit further up, that dog would do that. And I started to kind of analyze things. And I thought, I really love this. But what do I do now? Gibson's at advanced. There is nowhere else for us to go with this particular class. So I volunteered at another dog training school. Within about 3 months, I was taking their classes. And about 6 months later, I was taking all of their classes. And they had put me through a couple of courses to take, how to take a dog training class. But it didn't actually teach me as much as I wanted to learn about how to train dogs and why do they do the things they do. So I studied myself. I was online and I went to all sorts of courses and seminars, and anything I could go to, I went on. And I kind of self-taught myself. I am members of various organizations like the Pet Professional Guild, which is purely about force-free. I was always about force-free. I didn't want to cause any harm, intimidation, fear, or anything like that to any of the people I was teaching, as well as their dogs. Yeah. And I think that, in the old days, they were thinking about the dogs and they weren't thinking about force-free. It was about just get results, and they weren't thinking about the people. And I very much wanted to be a bigger part of that picture. Anyway, so as you know, there is no regulation in this industry, in my industry. I started my own dog training school, and anyone can still do that today, just like that. Anyway, so I started my own school, and I found that people kept coming back even when they got to advanced. I had a set class, and they kept coming back for course after course. And I was thinking, well, I need to think outside of the box, because as far as obedience goes, they're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But what am I going to do with them now? So I had to invent new things to do. And that's where my cognitive skills was born. I was playing all of these different brain games with these dogs. And the word cognitive or cognition wasn't even being spoken about in the dog training world, and not unless the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So even then, I was doing all of these skills, not really knowing that that was cognition. It was only, I found out because it was only when I was looking at how this was actually changing behavior. I was looking at various dogs I had and knew very, very well in my classes, and some of them had some reactive triggers. It might be a dog barking or another dog moving very quickly, or it might be a person going too close, so they were giving extra space, etc. But I noticed that when we were playing these games as such, these dogs, their behavior was changing, and they were becoming they could just cope with triggers much better. And that's when I looked into it, and I started to read so much about it. And that's when I thought, whoa, this is just a completely new ball game. So I started to look more into these games with a view to changing behavior. And I was taking these games outside of the classroom and into my behavior consultations. And I was noticing that behavior was changing quicker. And the main thing that I noticed is that listening and focusing skills completely changed. So it was out of the ballpark for me. That's when I realized that I've got something here. I was already doing workshops for other dog trainers were coming to my workshops with their own dogs. And I was already doing workshops for various other subjects within dog training. But I started to do all of my cognitive skills games, memory games, thinking games, all types of games to learn how to count and how to discriminate, whether it's a discrimination between a scent, something you hear, something you see, spelling their names, teaching the dogs how to spell their names from various letters standing up against a wall, which I'll happily share with you. But all types of things like that. And that became the biggest workshop that I was actually doing. And I was selling class plans to other dog trainers so that they could do it in their classes. So it just took off. And that's when I thought, how can I'm already sharing all of this because I love to share. Years ago, dog trainers would never share any methods at all. But I love to share it because I want to give it. I think I've been given a present, as you may say, and I want to share that with everyone. And I want them to share it with their dogs. So I just thought, well, the next step is to do a book. And there it was born.
Amazing. I so love that story. And I mean, you're so right. Some of these, I think, especially in my line of work, so seeing the more sort of severe spectrum or the severe end of behavior cases, dogs that really have quite significant behavioral problems, obedience training in the classical sense for those dogs doesn't really do anything for them. We go to a much more therapeutic approach, teaching them things like calm behaviors, confidence behaviors, coping skills, as you mentioned. And you're absolutely right. Cognition is another one of those C's. So we have calm, confidence, connection, cognition, cognitive skills, which tend to cross into that realm of therapy, of actually enabling the dogs to cope with certain situations, like you mentioned. It really taps into those areas of the brain that are away from that limbic system. So you'll often find those dogs that are triggered or that are reactive, in quotes. They live very much in this kind of limbic override. Their limbic system is constantly triggered. They're constantly in fight or flight. And if you can actually get them thinking about something and slow their brains down a little bit, that's when you start to cross into that sort of therapy space, if you like. And I'm anthropomorphizing a lot here. But when you go into that sort of more therapeutic approach and when you really start to make, like you say, those big behavior changes. So I love that. And of course, Kay, these games are for dogs of all ages, aren't they? They're for young, medium aged and older.
Yeah, well, as they progress through the games and the levels in the book, you start off at the real easy stuff and then you end up at the advanced stuff. So as they're going through each level, they're learning more skills. But first of all, they need to learn foundational skills, which is one of them is basically just look at what I'm showing you,
I
listen
love
to
that.
what I'm saying. And then another one would be, and now here's an action cue, do it now. So you've also got to, the dog gets the stage of, I know what to do, but I want you to, I'm ready for you to cue me when to go ahead and do it. So now you've got self-control, but you've also got self-motivation within that dog. And that in itself can be a skill. So it's not just problem solving. It's all about self-regulation and focusing. And, there's a huge amount of skill involved. And tapping into those to play games, the thing that dogs just love to do. And we all know if you're having fun by playing games, your learning is, it's far more effective.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. One of the things I really loved that when we had communicated before this recording, one of the things that I loved you said to me in one of your messages was how lovely it is to see owners realize how intelligent their dogs are when they start to kind of master some of these higher cognitive skills.
Yeah.
Can you chat to us a little bit about that?
Well, I used to really love it. At first, it used to make me think, oh, it's so sad. But I love it when people used to say to me, do you know what? I used to think my dog was thick.
Yeah.
And now
Yes.
they realize that they're not thick at all and that they
Yeah.
have such a huge amount of skills that they have inside that they had no idea previous to that. They had no idea how good their search skills were. They had no idea how good their nose was and even their visual skills. But dogs and also people say to me, do you know what? I've tried for months and months to teach this dog a retrieve. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it for toffee. And now playing this game, he's fetching things all the time.
Yeah.
And now he's asking me to play with him. He's never done that before.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So comments from owners, for me, that's absolute gold.
Yeah. And that goes so far into actually treating, in inverted commas, some of the behavior cases, certainly some of the ones that I see, getting owners to have a different view of their dog and to kind of see them in a different light.
Yeah.
And, not see them as that problem animal or he's just stubborn or, all those kind of things that dogs get labeled with, stubborn and, like you say, stupid, thick, whatever it might be. And that's just because they haven't communicated with them in a way that was understandable to the dog. And they haven't given them a game, like you say, that was actually fun, that they were motivated to do, that they could understand from a learning theory point of view. And it just flips the whole perception that the owner has of the dog. It strengthens that human animal bond. And in some cases, it might, go as far as actually preventing that dog from being relinquished or put to sleep if all of a sudden we're able to reestablish that bond.
I mean, you mentioned communication there, and that is key because it's showing them another avenue on how to effectively communicate with the dog, but also it's teaching the dog to communicate to the owner because I'm very much in a choice trainer. I want to teach the dog that in actual fact, you do have a choice.
Yeah.
But one of the skills that we need to teach them in order to play the games is how to make a choice. Show me what you choose is the right answer, or show me what you think is the right answer. So now we're going down the realms of this dog is saying, do you know, I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to have a go. I'm going to have a go at this. So we start off by offering two answers. One is correct and one is wrong. When the dog gets it wrong, the beautiful thing is nothing happens. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So therefore, we force the dog into thinking for itself, thinking, well, hang on, nothing's happened. You haven't marked me, so clearly I'm not going to get reinforced. So that must be right. So then you see dogs go from, and then it's that light bulb moment. From that moment on, you have a dog that says, I don't care if I get it wrong, because I know what's right. So they very quickly, it motivates them to keep trying, because not every dog is going to be exactly like that straight away. But you actually see dogs saying, do you know, I don't mind having a go in case I get it right, because I know exactly what the right answer is. And they so want to please and get it right. They will get it right so much quicker. And teaching that choice to me is great, that you can take that into the outside world and say, well, you do have a choice. Do you want to sit this close? No, you don't like it. Let's move away then. Show me what your choice is. Show me you're uncomfortable. I'll give you a choice if you can't make that choice. So choice is important.
Yeah. And that's a huge welfare piece as well. So if we think about, some of the things we think about when we're doing a welfare assessment and looking actually how good is this animal's welfare, choice and control have massively come into, they're almost seen as, one of the categories of enrichment now, even though, and I did do an episode on this, we shouldn't really use the word enrichment because it's actually just meeting basic needs. But control and choice, especially in a situation where we're exerting a lot of control over what our pet dogs do on a daily basis, right? We control when they get fed, we control when they're allowed to go for a walk, we control where they sleep, we control so much in their life that all of a sudden giving them some control over being able to make a choice in the setting of a game is like gold, when you think about it from a welfare point of view.
Absolutely. And, that also goes into the realms of problem solving. Some dogs don't look for the solution to a problem. They just flee, or they might just look at the owner, which is okay to look at the owner and say, can you help me? That's absolutely fine. But to teach the dog to actually problem solve themselves, for me, is just, again, it's gold. It's one of those things that when you see it in action, you just think, God, that dog is so clever.
Yeah.
He really knows. He's learned so much already. It's great.
And I think viewing problem solving as a skill in itself is something really powerful, because I think, you may think that that's just something that we are all able to do, right? Everyone's able to problem solve. But actually for dogs, it's very much a skill that we need to almost teach them that, hey, you can problem solve. And you start with really easy things to avoid frustration. And then, like you say, and I'm sure, we'll get into it when we talk a little bit more about your book, you then go up through the levels, you make things a little bit more difficult. And then the confidence they get with that, and the knowledge that I have the choice to problem solve this. I think, that's where we need to be going. I think as an industry, it's got to be less about obedience, which is to some degree somewhat coercive, and more into the direction
I think it goes from obedience. I think more we need to look at life skills.
Absolutely.
And I think these are basic life skills that you can build upon. But the big things for me is once the dog learns that they can problem solve, to make choices, they then become informed choices and learned choices. And that in itself can change behavior so quickly, overnight sometimes.
No, I totally agree with you. Right, let's get into the book a little bit. So why don't you chat us through, I know you've got a couple of sort of different sections to the book. Maybe perhaps chat us through that, and maybe if you can share a little nugget of an exercise with everybody.
I'd love to. Yeah. Well, if you have taught your dog a marker cue, which is something either yes or good or a clicker, that your dog fully understands the concept of, I have just done something correct, I'm about to be reinforced, whatever that reinforcer may be, then your dog can do all of the exercises in my book. Okay, so they need to understand that to be able to mark the dog, because if you've got choices correct and wrong, you need nothing to be happen, not get marked for an incorrect choice, and then get marked for the correct click, obviously. So what do we teach in the book? Well, we've got problem solving. They might get frustrated a little bit, so we've got to teach tolerance of that. They can learn from that going forward. But also that for me is teaching the owner how to help your dog when he's frustrated. Instead of thinking he's being naughty, in actual fact, he's not being naughty. He's just frustrated. He just needs a little bit of help, teaching them how to do that. Looking at various things for self-control, self-motivation, teaching the foundations for, look, directional cue, all types of things. But the skills that they're going to come away with will be learning how to fetch something, how to pay attention with duration, stay with me, stay away from me, walk with me, think about this for a little while and then tell me when you're ready. All of these types of things. But they'll learn all about discrimination, how to teach your dog to discriminate from one thing or another and make an informed choice. So there's a lot of setting things up, teaching the game, and then building upon that. And you can take those away and build upon them infinitely. Absolutely infinitely. I find that I tend to go round like the pound shop. I don't know if you have that in Dubai, but and I look at things and I think, oh my word, that would make such a good game. And I buy it, I take it home and I test it. And I used to take it into my classes. But lots of different skills. So directional cues, visual discrimination, how to retrieve, how to do a search, how to do a passive indicator to say, I found it, but I'm not going to touch it. So that might be a sit or a down or anything else. How to match items, how to discriminate. Tell me which one of those items is blue. Spell your name, that sort of thing. So let me tell you about how to spell your name.
Yes, please. I'd like to know that.
It looks brilliant. And this is one of the things that most of my customers will say, oh, I've got my mum coming round at the weekend. I'm gonna show her how Buddy can spell his name, So you have various letters just placed up against a wall, and they're physical letters that the dog can pick up, readily available from many, many places, but it needs to be lightweight. Now it's what we actually do is we get the dog to recognize a particular, let's just say, for example, a type of material, let's say felt or sponge. And then the letters of the dog's name we wrap in, say, green felt. But all the other letters that are not in the name Buddy, Buddy, so you'd need 2 Ds, are wrapped in a material that is not felt. And Buddy only knows to target anything in felt. So all the letters are green. So to the eye, it looks like they're all exactly the same. So then we sit the dog down. And if you want to make it into a trick, you say, okay, Buddy, are you ready to spell your name out today? Let's show everyone how clever you are. Okay, off you go. So you send him off. You don't send him for a particular letter. You just say, go and get me a letter that's in your name, Buddy. Go on. So he goes over and he looks like he's looking along the row of all the different letters. He finds one wrapped in felt and he goes, oh, that's one of mine. That's one that is reinforcing to me. All the others are non-rewarding, but anything in felt is rewarding. So he picks one up and he brings it back. He drops it onto his mat. He gets a treat. So we say, okay, Buddy, are you ready for the next letter? Off you go. He goes over, he repeats it, he finds another felt, he brings it out, etc., etc., etc. So now he's found all, and the people watching this are going,
oh my God.
yeah. So he's brought back all the letters, which are now in the correct order, standing up behind him. And we send him back. Now, there are no more felt letters at all. So he goes along the line and he kind of looks back at the hand as if to say, hey, there's no felt here. And so we say, is there no more? So he goes, oh, you want me to come to you because of this gesture? So we go, okay, you're absolutely right. There are no more letters there. You spelt it correctly. Yay! Round of applause. Buddy gets a nice big payout.
I love it so much.
Teaching him to discriminate on how something might even feel in his mouth, like sponge, and making that rewarding and making anything else non-rewarding. When you teach it, it's important that you do the 50-50 route. One is correct, one is wrong. One is reinforcing, one isn't. The dog will pick up so very, very quickly. Why would I bother with something that's no good to me? Yeah. So he'll quickly start to target the felt, and then you just transfer it to letters.
Gosh, that's brilliant. And, discrimination and matching, the two things that you mentioned, they are true cognitive exercises. So that's what's used to actually test cognitive skills, in a research setting. So I love that. And I'm going to go away and teach Lexi how to do that. My dog. I really want to
love for you. Send me a video.
I will.
But another part is counting, and that also is tapped into a cognitive part, because what that is, the dog isn't really learning how, well, they kind of are actually. But what they're first of all doing is, say we use, I have buttons and I put them in a triangle shape. The dog is learning that shape. Mm-hmm. And when I use just a single, it's just a round single. And if I use two, it's just two next to each other. Mm-hmm. So when the dog first starts to learn about counting, they're actually looking at shapes, shape formation. And that's what they have to look at. So look at it down there and go and show me which one on the wall matches that there. And that is how you then eventually go into the realms of counting. Right. You start with laying them in a shape. And you might do 4 in a square. They've all got to be laid out differently. You can't just stick them on, willy-nilly.
Yeah.
But you teach shapes first. Isn't that clever?
I know, it's so brilliant. And there's so much you can do with it. Like you say, you can get so creative with it as well. And I think that's something
really nice.
Yeah.
In my classes, it used to just make me laugh and smile so much, because all I could hear was, he's done it. He did it. It was great.
Yeah, it's so good. So which of your exercises, Kay, would you say are particularly good if you're dealing with nervous, anxious, fearful, reactive pets? I'm actually asking this selfishly now, because that's the kind of the demographic I see a lot of. Which exercises do you feel do a lot of good for that?
Something that is more sedate.
Calming, right? That's what I thought.
And the thing to remember is to say to the owners is, when the dog gets it right, don't throw a party. Don't go, yeah! Keep it nice and calm, and try to change your marker tone if you're speaking it to good rather than good, and that type of thing. So that's the first thing that I would go through with dog owners. But I would teach something as simple of watch and do. Mm-hmm. Watch me, you do it. For example, I use a lot of little tiny face cloths, and I tie it into a knot and I make that into a toy. So I might play with the dog with that first to get them interested in it and like it. And then I'll ask them to sit on a bed, and very close by, I might just tuck it under something or round something, and I might leave a couple of inches of it showing. And then I'll just walk back to the dog and say, you ready? Off you go get it, go on. And I would really encourage them. They're going to go to exactly where they just saw me put it.
Yeah.
And when they get there, if they no effect, or I can encourage them, I'll ask them to bring it to me, and then I'll reinforce that. So now I've got watching, listening, remembering, I've got to fetch and bring it back. So I've got to retrieve. And then I've got now watch what I do next. Bit by bit, I'm going to make that toy disappear in the same spot. So where I left a couple of inches out, I'd now hide it completely. Well, because I've got a pattern of learning and a history of learning and short-term memory, the dog is going to go to exactly the right place. Because he can't see it, he might lift the bed up or something, or go around to get it and repeat the behavior for reinforcement. And I would keep doing that. But then I would go back to basics, but I would now choose a new hiding place. So I'd say, now it's going to be over. Watch me put it over there so that you can see a little bit of it hanging out, and now go and get it. When I get to the stage where now it's hidden completely, I might hide it in A or B.
Yeah.
Now I've got a choice again, 50-50. One's right, one's wrong. If the dog goes to the wrong place and looks at me as if to say, what's going on? I always do this gesture, like, try again, keep trying. If they need help, I'd give them a little help by maybe standing closer to the other one. But then they usually go, well, if it's not in there, history tells me it must be in there. Yeah. Then they get it right. So something as simple as that. And it's such an easy game. You know, a lot of people say to me, but I'm not hiding it because he's watching me. But you're showing him where you're going to hide it. So you're going to make it really easy. But your end goal is, you might hide it there, you might hide it somewhere else. Yeah. So now he has to learn, if it's not there, it has to be there, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So something as easy as that.
Well, it's actually not that easy, because that's reversal learning, which is, again, that's what we call executive function. So all of those things like reversal learning, that takes quite a lot of, you know, brain processes to kind of have that executive function of thinking about that. So the game is simple, but the cognitive function that it's teaching or eliciting is actually pretty complex.
I actually call amazing. That an iceberg. I call that an iceberg exercise. Because on the above water, it's a simple game, but underneath, there's such a lot going on.
Absolutely.
And for some dogs, I might even make it a little bit difficult after they understood the concept, of course, and they've been doing it really well and getting it correct. I always think 9 times out of 10 is fine. 8 times of getting it right out of 10 is fine. So I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just looking for the dog being fairly successful before I decide to change the exercise. But sometimes I might hide it. I might be at the stage where I hide it completely. And then I'll ask the dog to do a couple of simple tasks. Sit down. And then I'll say, now go and find it. And that is slightly harder too, because underwater level, you've added another aspect of it. So
absolutely.
I agree totally. It's above waterline, it's a simple game. But underneath that iceberg, there's such a lot going on.
Absolutely. And now you're chaining things together, you know, like an operant task, a sit or a down, and then a cognitive task on top of that. So I love that. Do you know what I was actually just thinking as you were talking there? The types of dogs that might really appreciate this. Number one are your high drive dogs. So, you know, your working dogs, high drive dogs. Yeah. But I have a lot of dogs that really struggle with the external environment, especially here in the UAE. A lot of the urban environments can be quite triggering. And we have a lot of people that prefer not to walk their dogs just because the environment is so triggering. And so we're always looking for things to replace, the walk, so that they still have some kind of physical exertion, but also that mental enrichment that they would get on a walk through sniffing and so on and so forth. And I think some of these real sort of trickier cognitive tasks, if you build up to them slowly, and if obviously you do it step by step, and here in the summer as well, it gets so hot that there isn't that opportunity for all that physical exercise. So I think some of these cognitive games would be so useful.
Absolutely. When I'm doing my workshops, we have to give the dogs regular breaks because they become so tired. Yep. And at lunchtime, it's like a nursery. All the dogs, I say to them, if your dog finds it difficult to settle in this environment, go and sit with them in the car to eat your sandwiches. Let that dog have a little, compressed time and sleep. And they'd come back completely refreshed. And I found that, even after my classes like 45 minutes long, they need regular breaks, but they always send me pictures of their dogs on their bed snoozing upside down and everything. It does tire them out.
Yeah.
But this book would be perfect for that, for your followers, because this book would be great even in any country for a dog that is convalescing, dogs of any age. Even if they're on rest, not crate rest obviously, but even if they're on rest periods, this would be great because they're all such low impact games that they can play. So it's perfect.
Yeah. Which of the games do you think, Kay, that would be really good for our senior dogs? So perhaps those dogs that already have some signs of cognitive decline, that perhaps are finding it a little bit more difficult, and those dogs that we definitely don't want to get frustrated, but we still want to keep some cognitive activity because obviously that's neuroprotective. What are the games do you think those guys might benefit from?
Well, I would say, first of all, keep it to all games on a 50-50 choice, so that one's right, one's wrong. If they get it wrong, there's not going to be a great deal of frustration. And if there is, it won't be for long, because even if you need to, you can help them.
Yeah.
So anything, sorry, I'm just losing my headset. Anything that is a 50-50 only, okay? You could get away with some real easy match and sample.
Yeah.
But I would make it items that the dog is absolutely familiar with. I wouldn't introduce anything new. Yeah. So you could use toys if you've got two of them, obviously, or, socks, gloves, something that your dog is familiar with or knows quite well. Their toys is perfect for that. You could do some scent work, because at the end of the day, they still use their nose and they still like to eat. So you could do some scent discrimination quite easily. And I think teaching them, if they don't already know it, a passive indicator, that would be really, really good for them and easy for them too.
Yeah. So lots actually for our golden oldies as well.
I recently, until last year, I lost two of my dogs. So they reached the grand old age of 16 and a half. And one had dementia. And he had, he was quite, he wasn't too bad, because obviously I recognized the stages of it, but he did have dementia, but he could still do simple tasks. I stopped asking him to sit because he had a bit of a spinal spondylosis and everything. But so he didn't do anything where he had to sit. He chose to lay down. That was his choice all the time. But boy, did he have a nose. He always had a really good nose on him. So he could do match and sample even on a scent so easily. I didn't used to do too much for him because in order to make choices on the games where something's on the wall, where they have to either indicate with a nose touch, or a paw, again, that was always the dog's choice. I didn't actually do that with him because I didn't want him stretching his head up too far. I mean, I could have put them lower for him because he was only a little short-legged thing anyway. But I just didn't want him doing too much of that.
Yeah.
And I have a little rule, which is, I call it 10 treat training. You count out 10 treats. Once those 10 treats have gone, the session is finished.
Yeah, I love
for dogs, so that keeps that short and sweet. But for dogs that don't need anything for any medical conditions, what it actually stops is it stops the owner going, this is so good, I'm going to keep doing it and keep doing it. And the dog goes, again, oh my word. I want the dog to go, oh.
Can we do it again? Yeah.
And then when you do go to do it again, say maybe a while later, the dog goes, oh, great, it's that again. So, it just taps into that motivation. So I would say stick to your 10 treat training.
Yeah.
If your dog has dementia and you think even 10 treats is too much, 10 repetitions is too much, go to 5.
Yeah.
Or just go to whatever you think your dog can deal with and cope with.
I think both of those things that you've just said, Kay, are such great advice. Number one, keeping those sessions short and sweet. We all know that is the way to go. But also the other big thing I think is, being aware of your dog's physical limitations and making sure that we're not inadvertently doing something to cause them pain or discomfort or to, make things worse. And I think that applies to dogs of all ages, but in particular, I think, again, when we're sort of thinking about our golden oldies, definitely something that we need to consider for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I can't believe that's been 40 minutes. We could carry on chatting for another hour. I think we'll have to do a part 2. But can you let everybody know, Kay, where can we actually find your book, or where can people find your book to purchase it if they've fallen in love with everything that we've spoken about today?
Well, of course, I'd love them to buy the book because it makes a great Christmas present. But it's at the moment, it's available from a company called Performance Dog. And so that's www.performancedog.co.uk, and it's $17.99 obviously here in the UK, but you can buy it online.
Okay.
I'm sure eventually it will be on Amazon and everything else.
Perfect. And the name of the book is Canine Cognitive Skills, to anybody that's looking for that. So Canine Cognitive Skills on performancedog.com. And yes, it will make a great Christmas present. I can't wait to get my copy, and I'm definitely going to do the spelling of the name exercise. Is there anywhere else that people can find you, Kay, if people are in the UK and they want to get in touch with you? What's your website?
My website is www.kay9services.co.uk, but I will put a link onto there for buying the book as well, because there is a shop on there, so it'll be on there.
That's great. And we will make sure that we get all of those links and we pop them in the show notes of today's episode. And I'm also going to just link back the episodes 55 and 57, which were the episodes on canine and feline cognitive dysfunction, just because it's a somewhat related topic. And thank you, Kay, so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you about all these wonderful games. And yeah, I think this is definitely the direction I feel personally that dog training, in inverted commas, should be heading into. So thank you for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your experience. And for everybody listening, thank you for listening today. And I look forward to seeing everybody next week for episode 62. Bye for now.